Okay, it's recording. It is recording. So I guess we'll get started. We wanted to here in this agenda provide you with an overview of the process and also a online demonstration of our online portal, and then finish it up with Q&A. So just really quickly wanted to give everyone a reminder. I know it's a lot of detail of the business tax and a quick overview. Registration and filing, the annual BRC for all eligible businesses, those were due in March. So we've asked businesses in the month of October to please register their BRC in before November 1st. And so what is going to happen is that this week, account credentials to file your business tax will be sent to you based on your contact information on file with BRC. And the first annual business filing for the calendar year 2023 is due January 1st. I also want to make you all aware that delinquencies, penalties will be 30 days after that filing date. So really that won't be in effect until February 1st. After this first quarterly business filing, after this first annual business filing, quarterly business filings will begin in 2024 for the January through March period. And that is due later in the calendar year. Really quickly, rate and cap. For the first 24 months, the square footage rate, monthly rate, is 3.75 cents. And starting January 2025, the full rate will be in effect, which is 7.5 cents per square foot monthly. There is also a $500,000 cap on the business tax. And then what is the process? I don't know, Josh, if you wanted to cut in here or I can continue.
Totally up to you. I'm happy either way.
Go for it.
All right. Thanks, Christine. Okay, thanks everybody. So our first step, of course, I think as everyone probably here knows, there is a separate requirement for a business registration certificate. That serves as sort of the key foundation for sort of all the businesses in the city. It's a broader approach and is the first step in requirement. So if you have a BRC, you're set with step one, pretty easy to skip past. If you don't, then the process will begin with registering for the BRC. It's a fairly simple process, fairly identical to the business tax, with the exception, of course, of the tax payment and the filing procedure. The registration process is fairly similar. We're going to be doing some things over the next year to hopefully combine those things to make them a little bit easier for everyone. But in the meantime, it's got to be sort of that first step of where to start for getting your registration completed. The second part after that is completed and taken care of with those requirements is to then file your business taxes for this first period on an annual basis and then moving forward on a quarterly basis. Of course, there are some people who will have a business registration but are exempt from the tax. We'll cover that a little bit later, but there's some examples here. Of course, anybody who's exempt from either a federal or state requirement, grocery stores, supermarkets, items like that, and any businesses where they have less than 10,000 square feet of occupied space are also exempt from that process. We still will be having everyone go through the process of registering. There just won't be any tax due at the end of the process. So you'll still have to file your returns. Of course, they'll just be $0 returns. And then, of course, again, the last step is to continue the process on a quarterly basis for the tax and an annual basis for the business registration. Again, diving into some more of the details on the exemptions, we talked about the small business footprint of less than 10,000 square feet, grocery stores, Transitory businesses, so anybody that's coming into the city for a few days to do something, random, visiting from another jurisdiction where they're physically located. As long as that sort of transitory activity is under 90 days, there is no tax assessed. If it is over 90 days, a project occurs either continuously or in full over that period of time, then the registration for the business tax is required. Of course, typical federal exemptions and state exemptions like nonprofits, banks and financial institutions, and some residential home care providers are exempt as well. And of course, anybody who's operating a business for the purpose of residential space. So that would be like, renting out your house or an apartment complex or something similar. So those are some of the pretty standard exemptions that are there. If anybody falls into those categories, again, there'll be a spot for you to highlight that during the registration process if we haven't already identified you with that already. This is part of the reason why the business registration process is upfront and one of the first steps, so that we can kind of get all the technicalities out of the way to make the tax filing simpler. So if you fall into one of those categories and you are required to go in and file a zero return, that process should be relatively simple because all of that will be identified for you. There are a significant set of offsets to the tax amount when it is filed. This is for a very limited category of people based on special circumstances. The first is the hotels. Anyone who's paying and remitting a transient occupancy tax will get an offset to their business tax based on the total amount of transient occupancy tax they're paying and remitting to the city. So for anybody who is collecting that and doing that, there will be a special process for basically creating an offset against the tax owed on the business tax side. Same thing for discretionary sales and use tax. Again, very limited, very special group of people. Pretty rare in cases about who will be able to qualify for these types of exemptions. And we do require a consultation for sort of determining eligibility and to help with the calculation, because it is not difficult, I would say, but does have some complexity in the sense of how it is applied, what periods it applies to, and how it works. So if anybody feels that they are qualifying for these top two offsets, definitely needs to call and reach out and schedule an appointment so that we can see what's going on. I think I got, excuse me just a second. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I had something pop up and cover the screen. The final item is vacant space. So there is an offset against the tax on the vacant space because it is based on square footage that's occupied. The vacant space is a calculation that will be applied during the process. Again, here, this is a very simple one that we do anticipate more people potentially may have the ability to do. But the calculation is explained on the sheets and on the website, so you'll have the ability to enter in the vacant space and those items. It can be complex if you do have a prorated period for vacant space. So as you're doing your quarterly filing, if a period of vacant space is in between the filing period, so half of the time it was vacant and half of the time it was not, there'll be a proration that will have to be applied. But again, still somewhat simple with some complexity and definitely applied in the case that you have. We recommend that anybody who has any of these offsets, it's certainly there's going to be some instructions available on the city's website as well as our online filing page, but definitely feel free to reach out. There's a group of people that will be available to help with any questions to determine which offsets apply, how to calculate them easier, and when to make the application for the special ones. So definitely feel free to reach out. We want to make this as easy as possible. We know it's the first time for everyone. We feel like after this first sort of round, it should be relatively simple and everyone should be able to do it on their own. But we will have a significant number of resources available to assist with these offsets as they move forward.
Thank you, Josh, for that. I just wanted to also note for folks, there is the issued administrative regulations that kind of outline instructions really on these three offsets because they can be quite complicated. Another thing we're doing related to the sales and use tax offset is that we've worked with our city attorney's office to kind of put together what requirements are and to help businesses that are eligible for this offset work with us in the city to have supporting documents for audit reasons. We've intentionally made those guidelines not overly prescriptive because we also acknowledge that a lot of businesses have special situations, or it could vary the type of setup you have and operations. So please, one of the things we're asking folks that are eligible, especially for the sales and use tax offset, is to meet with us so that we can get things done the right way before we get started. So thank you.
Okay, excuse me. The next part here is just a quick overview of the business registration portal. The address that you see on top, you can get to it from the city's website, or you can get to it directly from paloalto.hdlgov.com. Here is where you're going to be able to kick off any of your online or electronic processes. You can access the business registration portal and conduct either a brand new registration or renew a registration, pay balance dues, update your account information. So if there's something that's changed, a name, a phone number, contact, where you're doing business, all of those items can be updated as well. If your business ends up closing or there's something there, you can submit a request for a closure. So pretty much anything that you can do via the mail or in person or over the phone, you can also do online. Same for the business tax portal. Again, make note, there is a difference between the two, which is why you see two different boxes here on the landing page. There is a separate sort of path for the business registration process and a separate path for the business tax portal. For all of those, again, most of you, I think, on the call are likely already registered for the business registration. There is no need to do that in this first filing period that's happening in January. That registration renews in April. So for this beginning period, we're really just focusing on the business tax. But again, if you don't have one, the business registration will be the best place to start. We definitely have a full-featured process here for the online filing that covers the majority of people, and again, some exceptions for the offsets and the special processes that need to go through a more scrutinized procedure. We have a variety of resources that are going to be available for you to use on your own. The Business Tax Resource Guide. There's a calculator available on the city's website to help you sort of through a calculation or just to give yourself an estimate of what the impact is going to be. As Christine mentioned earlier as well, there's some very detailed administrative regulations that go through all of these details and some of the specific requirements and the nuance of each of these types of fields and the items that are there. Of course, old school paper forms are always accepted as well, so you can see a copy of any filing forms, send things via the mail, and do things via paper. The online portal is up and ready to be viewed. We also are going to have, both on the city's website and on the filing portal that we just discussed, a few walkthrough tutorial videos of how to file your return and how to go through each individual step. So it'll be some walkthrough videos that you can call. And then, of course, virtual conversations. So we're really making this process as easy as we can. You can certainly call in and or email in to request a specific appointment time. But most of the times, unless you have a really complex filing like we talked about with some of the offsets, your best bet is to just call the customer support number. We have a pretty dedicated staff available. This isn't something where you're going to be calling in and waiting for 30 minutes to get a hold of a representative. Our average wait time for people is under 30 seconds to get you in touch with someone that can assist with getting the filing done. So all those resources are available for all the businesses in the city. And definitely we encourage everybody, if there's any questions, sometimes it is easier to just pick up the phone and call. We can also process and do your form right there on the phone. So if that's easier, and you'd rather just call in and make your payment and do all the form filing on the phone, we support that as well. I think that covers the majority of it. We certainly can go into any more detail if anybody'd like, but now's a good time to stop and for questions, unless Christine, you want to have a quick wrap up before we do.
No, I think that covers it. And, happy to help anyone with questions they have. I figured I'd stop recording for the questions, so I'll stop the presentation. Thank you. Okay, we're off recording. Does anyone, I'm checking chat. I don't see any questions popping up, but
Can I just ask a question? Hi, this is Dana.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I have a question because I actually did call this morning to the number provided. And the answer I received was somewhat different than what you're saying now. So we got an email stating